Tyler Smith is the breakout star from this year's G League Ignite class. This is floor and ceiling, let's break him down. Tyler Smith is a former 5-star recruit who spent 2 seasons in the Overtime Elite program before joining the G League Ignite this past summer. The 6'11" forward sort of slipped under the radar after his OTE experience, but he has arguably been the Ignite's most consistent player so far. It helps that Smith's role with the team is very clearly defined, and it starts on the perimeter with his 3-point shooting. In all of his games so far, Smith has made a little over 37% of his triples. As of this video, he is 29 for 77 from deep. That is always encouraging for such a big prospect who toggles between both front court positions. Smith is a lefty shooter with really crisp mechanics. He's very intentional about staying on balance, which means that his footwork and how he sets his feet already looks very good. And then, what I like the most is how repeatable his shot looks, no matter where he's letting it fly from. Smith might have a slightly slow dip on his jumper, but this should not matter too much at 6'11". The 19-year-old is already a dangerous catch-and-shoot threat, and down the line, I think we'll see even more of him in pick-and-pop situations. We've already seen some of this, although I think the G League Ignite prefer to have him space out a lot of the time. But with his shooting, Smith is somebody that teams have to close out on. And it's easier said than done for 4s and 5s to defend a screen, and then rush back out to the perimeter to contest Smith's 3. The other major component of the Ignite forward's role with his team is taking advantage of mismatches. At his size, this is key. You don't want somebody as big as Smith to only amble around the perimeter, but thankfully, he doesn't do just that. Starting in the post, Smith might not be the most physical presence yet. He definitely has room to bulk up and assert himself more, but he has the height and soft touch to be effective down low. Smith is able to play with his back to the basket, particularly when the defense switches on a screen, and we've already seen some pretty solid results. In the future, my hope is that Smith can play through contact even better. He can still struggle at times, and he has to build up his lower body more. But the flashes we've already seen and the tools that he has make me feel positive about his development in this area. The other way that Smith can exploit mismatches is by facing up and playing over the top. This is really encouraging to see already, since it shows to me that he understands how to leverage his size and shooting. This usage facing up can also offset the physical improvements that he's in the process of making, since he won't always have to bump and wrestle down low. Smith has a simple but effective game, and usually he doesn't need to take more than 1 or 2 dribbles, and that's if he even takes any at all. It's the same gist as when he posts up, but instead of backing down his switch out of a screen, the Ignite prospect can just turn and shoot over them. So far this season, he's averaging slightly under 13 points per game. And the catch here is, most of Smith's buckets come on relatively easy looks. I understand that this might not make him the most flashy prospect, or maybe the one with the highest ceiling, but it also means that Smith has a pretty high floor and a style of play that profiles to be very effective as a pro in the NBA. When he's not shooting from 3 or punishing mismatches, Smith can fulfill the basics of a big fairly well when it comes to scoring. At 6'11", with bounce and long arms, he can cut from the dunker spot, slip to the rim, or generally just be active in the paint to simply catch and then finish. The G League Ignite have used him interchangeably at both the 4 and the 5, and I think he'll probably be more of a 4 long-term, as we'll dive into, but I have liked how many reps the team has given Smith in the pick and roll. This season, he's shown that he can both pop out and also dive long and throw down some big dunks. With Ethan Almansa and Eric Mika as the only other fives on this Ignite squad, Smith gives the team an above-the-rim option that otherwise does not exist. So overall, this is appealing versatility, not just for Smith's own game, but also for the entire bigger picture of a lineup and what they can do on the floor. As for Smith's limitations, the biggest one is his self-creation. As I've been saying, he's effective in his current role. I think it's malleable enough, and he's a nice fit with today's NBA because of his size, shooting, athleticism, and touch. And yet, at the same time, Smith is almost completely reliant on others to set him up. He needs constant service, either with good kickouts and reads to find him on the perimeter, or with entry passes and drop-offs to feed him closer to the basket. One can also make an argument that Smith's skill set becomes relatively limited right now if his three ball isn't falling. Now, I don't completely believe this because I think he's going to be a mismatch and above the rim threat regardless, but it is true that a lot of his outlook is centered around how he spaces the floor. So if he falls into a slump, or if his shooting does not carry over into the NBA for whatever reason, the incentive to have him on the court might decrease. In some ways, this is why Smith reminds me of Taylor Hendricks from last year's draft. Hendricks could also shoot really well from deep, be a factor close to the rim, and play at least a couple of positions, and he was 13 on my big board. But he's barely played in the NBA this season because the Utah Jazz want him to further round out his skill set in the G League. That's totally fine, and I'm still high on Hendricks, as I am also high on Smith. But it just goes to show you that he could continue to be in the G League a lot over his first couple of NBA seasons. In his current role with the G League Ignite, Smith doesn't have to make a lot of decisions. It's pretty much screening, posting, and shooting. And even though this will also be the makeup of his NBA scoring, he'll have to adjust to sharper closeouts, increased physicality, more pressure and length, quicker reads, and so on and so forth. The only self-creation off the dribble that Smith has shown so far is attacking closeouts, or more sporadically on a handful of drives. The idea of him attacking closeouts or shifting defenses is pretty straightforward. It's predicated on his three-point shooting, and even if the process can be clunky right now, I see a path forward. Down the line, adding a sidestep three or a more consistent one-dribble pull-up looks like the way to go. But even now, I'm intrigued by flashes such as this one. Or here, as Smith puts the ball down, shrugs off his defender, and uses his soft touch to convert. As for what else Smith can bring to the table outside of scoring, he's an okay rebounder with room to get better. He only averages about 5 rebounds a game, although 2 come on the offensive glass. Still, as we'll get into, the Ignite's defense as a whole leaves a lot to be desired, so it's not always like Smith is in a position to clean up misses. In terms of playmaking for others, there are some glimpses like this out of the short roll which I like. But he's much more focused on scoring, and the Ignite prefers other players to facilitate. The good news is that Smith barely turns the ball over, just a little over once per game, but as of now, it's honestly hard to gauge his vision. Defensively, the idea with Tyler Smith is pretty clear. He's a good athlete at 6'11" with bounce and long arms, so he can use this to be a deterrent at the rim. He also moves well around the floor, although largely in a straight line in my opinion, but that's also encouraging for a 6'11" forward with a 7+ foot wingspan. So there have been flashes, but not much production yet. Smith puts up under 1 block and under 1 steal per game. But like I pointed out, this Ignite team has been terrible on defense. It's not easy to tell where each prospect is at, but individually, the improvement for Smith has to come in the pick and roll. His reaction time is slow, and he's not very good at taking away angles. At this stage of his development, Smith concedes drives or pocket passes far too easily, so he needs to grow on being able to take away both options and limit both guards and bigs. Part of this is that he's never really needed to make great defensive reads against a high level of competition, going from high school to 2 years in OTE, and then to a defensively poor Ignite team. However, I do think that he's improved as the season has gone on, which is nice to see. Smith is fleet-footed and huge, so he's held up relatively okay against switches, which usually prefer to target other Ignite defenders before him. I don't think he excels at changing directions, and he has a higher center of gravity, but he is good at making himself big and tough to get around. However, Smith is gonna have to get stronger. He can get pushed around in the paint, usually when he's playing the 5, and he bounces off bigger and stronger attackers. Keep in mind though, he is just 19, and his frame looks like it will be able to support added muscle. In turn, what I like about Smith on D is how quick he is off his feet. He has a nice first and second jump, which is a great tool when paired with his wingspan, and although I think he struggles when he's directly involved on defense, he's much better coming in and helping. Theoretically, this should happen more if he's played at the 4, which in my opinion is likely Smith's long-term position. Right now, I have Tyler Smith locked in as a top 25 pick, but with room to get into the late teens. I really like his profile on offense. Smith is a 6'11" forward who's really comfortable shooting threes. He can play both sides of the screen, rolling and popping, and he's also able to punish mismatches with his size and shots. He doesn't create for himself off the bounce, but I think that's generally fine given what he's going to be asked to do. My questions more so come on defense, where I think Smith lacks experience making high-level reads, particularly in the pick and roll, and we're yet to see him in a truly competitive defensive environment, even though I like his glimpses in help defense. As always, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, make sure to leave a comment telling me what you think of Tyler Smith, and if you enjoy the channel, if you want to watch more content like this, make sure to subscribe. Take care, and I'll catch you guys next time.